Hi, it's Dennis Daly. For nearly 20 years, I hosted a weekly travel and interview show called American Montage, and I realized quite early that if I came across a good guest, I should have that person back repeatedly. I think I had MARIANA FIELD-HOPPIN on my show 5 different times. She was one of the most energetic people I ever interviewed, an international travel agent and traveler, and a spokeswoman for Avis Car Rental. And so, before my first overseas trip going to Europe, I wanted to talk to her again. The first thing I asked her is, what had she been doing?
I've been traveling. I know that's going to come as an amazing surprise to you. Best trip I've taken in the last year was to Tuscany, where we drove around the Tuscan countryside between Florence and Siena for a full 4 days of just sheer bliss.
Why did I think France when you said that, but it's Italy?
Well, Tuscany is definitely Italy, because driving around France is also very beautiful, and I think the two things you could say about both France and Italy that are true is you cannot find a bad meal. You can find an expensive one, but you can't find a bad one.
Well, this whole process of my first trip to Europe or outside the country has really been interesting. I went through the whole passport thing, and I'm going to be talking about that on a different segment of American Montage. I really wish that I had started that process sooner, because I'm the great procrastinator. I put it off. Then the government shutdown came in, and all of a sudden there was this huge backlog of passport applications, and it just got really silly trying to get it done.
The travel tip, I think, is to start 6 months in advance for everything. If you're using frequent flyer mileage, the travel tip is to start about 1 year in advance, because there's so few seats left on those airplanes.
Let's talk about that for a second. The airlines, for the most part, have had a pretty good past 6 months.
They've had a brilliant year. I mean, they're all back in the black as far as I can work out, but that's good news and bad news. For the consumers, that's thee and me, it means that those airfares are going to stay up there, and they've risen, 10, 20% in the last year. But let's talk about frequent flyer miles. We all travel. We all keep them. We're all very proud of our allegiance. In my case, it's American Airlines. But somehow we forget to look at the expiring miles. So you got to keep your eye on that expiring mile. The other tip is to always keep your boarding pass until you have been credited on your account for those miles.
Yeah, or in the case, for example, of a hotel or a car rental.
Exactly.
And sometimes some of those take what seems forever. And sometimes they don't.
Yeah, it can take up to 2 months, but the point is keep the actual documentation in case by chance they don't give you the credit.
MARIANA, tell us some more about your travels in the past year before we get down to the heart of the matter, and that's giving me some advice on my first trip to Europe.
Right. Well, I flew across the Atlantic from New York to London. I booked about 4 months in advance to have seats using my frequent flyer mileage. I took my wonderful daughter, Ashley. We spent 1 night in London, and then we took the Eurostar, and that is the best thing since sliced bread. It's the new train that goes under the Channel Tunnel, which is called a Channel. It leaves London, and 3 hours later you are in downtown Paris at the Gare du Nord, which is just North Station. It's sensational.
Now, what was the old process? The train was put on a ferry, or you took a ferry and got on another train?
Yeah, you could take a ferry and get seasick, or you could take 3 hours to get to London Heathrow Airport and take another 2 hours waiting in line and then coming in from Paris. So that whole trip could take anywhere between 3 hours and all day. Or you could take a hovercraft, which is really quite a bumpy ride. And this has just completely revolutionized travel between the UK and the continent. I think it's fabulous. And the prices aren't bad, Dennis. We paid about $125 a ticket. We went second class, and the main thing to remember here is don't go on the first train of the day. That's when all the businessmen are going on their day trips, so that's a big rush. Why not go on the second train of the day and have the train to yourself?
How often do they run?
Oh, it's almost every hour.
Good heavens.
Yeah, they've been bumping it up. It's literally, it goes very slowly in the UK. As Monsieur Mitterrand was heard to say, you have plenty of time to admire the English scenery.
It's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, because you only go about 70 miles an hour. But the minute you get through Calais to the other side of France, usually the sun is shining there, and you can hit speeds up to 186 miles an hour.
You don't want to stare right out the window. You want to stare long distance, or you can almost get seasick.
This is true. The only time I've been that fast was when I was in a small plane landing or taking off.
Where you're that close to the ground and you can see it.
That's right.
You know, you open up an interesting concept there. I had been looking for some place else to go outside London in the 4 days I'm there. And I had thought only, for example, of going up to St. Andrews and maybe just, since I don't play golf, I thought it would be fun if they let me just knock a golf ball so I could say that I had played at St. Andrews.
Yep.
But I never thought about going to Paris.
Well, why not do a day trip to Paris? People do it all the time, but just remember, don't take the first train out of London, take the second train. Mine left about 9:20 in the morning. You'll get right to the Gare du Nord. There's going to be a bit of a wait getting a cab there, but you can go shopping, you can have a great meal, and go see the Eiffel Tower. I did about 7 things in my day and a half in Paris, all of which are touristy, all of which are sensational. You should go to the Champs-Élysées, you should go up the Eiffel Tower, you should go see the Musée d'Orsay, but most of all, you should just walk around Paris. It's enchanting.
What is this deal with everybody dumping on the French as not being friendly? Is it just
simply not true?
I'm hoping it's not.
It isn't true. It isn't true. Particularly if you speak a little French, that helps a lot. I think the travel tip is to dress up. When in doubt, dress up, not down. If you walk around with curlers in your hair and a jogging suit and 2 pairs of sneakers on each foot, they aren't going to treat you very well. No. But if you dress decently, as you would normally in Washington or New York or anywhere in the USA, then you will be treated with respect, and you will find that most people in Paris do speak enough English to direct you where you want to go. You will find them very American friendly because they're aware of this accusation against them, and I was just totally enchanted by them.
Mariana, you said something that bothered me, and you talked about what seems to be a terrible amount of time it takes to get from Heathrow Airport to downtown. I don't know where I'm going to be staying in London yet, but I'm one of those people whose sleep cycle is out of whack anyway. I was hoping to wait until the last minute, but you're telling me with international travel, you can't just go to the airport and walk on a plane.
No, and the reason is that there's a lot of security checks that go on overseas. They're much better about checking everything about you, your passport, your ticket, your baggage, who packed it, did anybody give you a present, are you thinking about getting a present? And it can take a very long time. I have spent up to an hour and a half at London Heathrow from the time I walked into Terminal 3 to get my American plane. So the travel tip there is please, please, please allow lots of extra time.
Now, what about baggage? I'm going to have a fiberglass case that is about, a 1.5 feet cube that will have electronic equipment in it, which will include wires and batteries. And I know when I've had it on carry-on, one time I made the mistake of wrapping my batteries, inside some of the wire. And this woman said, "Would you open your..." And it looked terrible, apparently, on X-ray. It was the B word, is what they were thinking.
That's right.
What about, do you sometimes have to open everything? I mean, if you meticulously pack, are you going to be there then trying to stuff it all back in?
Yes, you are, particularly overseas, because remember, they're having more incidents than we are, knock on wood. And so they're much more careful. But you see, I think that's really good. I think the more vigilant they are, the better.
I don't mind that at all. I'm just trying to figure whether or not, instead of cramming everything in, I should leave enough fudge room that I can get it all back. It's like, taking dirt out of a hole with a shovel. You can't get it all back in.
Yeah, like getting all those people out of the car in the circus. I know exactly what you're saying. Leave lots of room, Dennis. That's the answer.
Let's talk about the very basic issues of going overseas, and then I want to have you tell me some more of your wonderful travel stories. I've gotten the passport taken care of.
Good.
And I did book ahead of time. I'll be flying on a 747 nonstop from Washington Dulles to London, and the airline, and I won't mention it because it conflicts with yours.
That's okay.
It's United.
That's a good airline.
I called up the woman at United and I said, "Hi, I'm Dennis Daly at UPI, and I'd like permission to record some of the sounds on the plane for a future program." And she said, "Well, let me look at the manifest," and she couldn't find me. And she said, "Where are you sitting?" And I said, "I'm in 48A," and she said, "Coach?" And I said, "Ma'am, I'm just a poor reporter." And I thought, why did she ask me that? Yeah. So she calls me back and she said, "Have you ever flown connoisseur class?"
Oh, how nice.
Which I guess is United's business class.
It is.
What is for the flyer who can afford it? Can you explain the difference between the 3 classes on international travel?
Well, first I'll tell you, I'm thrilled for you.
I am
on
too.
A 747, that's the biggest jumbo out there. Well, it's not quite. The 777 is newer. But it's a nice, big, wide-body, comfortable plane. And business class just means that it's all the difference in the world. A, there's more leg room. B, there's more room between the seats themselves. That's what the airline people call seat pitch. So you don't have your knees under your chin and someone else's knees in your back, which is not comfortable going across the Atlantic. And number 3, you get much better service. You get much better meals. You can walk around. There are many more loos. It's just fabulous.
And Lou is the...
Lou is the English
travel
word
so
for...
much for lavatory,
You got
right?
it. And then, of course, in first class, what they've done now is they're putting beds in the sky. I don't think the American carriers have matched it yet, but I know British Airways has literally beds in the sky. They go all the way down on their transatlantic, and I know that Air France does as well. Remember, Dennis, you're flying the busiest corridor going, that European corridor between Washington, actually it's New York and London. So Washington, Paris links into the same thing. So you've got high competition, which means you're going to find some very good values if you're traveling off season, which is what you're doing.
That's why they That's why they had the space to do it.
Clever man, but nice of them to realize that because the airlines are trying. They're used to getting a bad rap, but I have to tell you, I travel, 80, 90,000, at least 90,000 miles a year, and I think they do a sensational job given what they have to deal with.
Do you find when you see a comedian, and I guess Alan King was the originator of bashing the airlines. I mean, I'm not in love with the airlines, but I certainly realize that those kids work hard, and that there are people who want them to fly in weather they wouldn't drive in.
Yeah, well,
and people want the world for $89. I mean, I just get so upset at my fellow passengers sometimes.
Well, you have every reason to. I was on a plane last Friday coming in from Chicago O'Hare, which I think is the world's busiest airport. There were 53 jets on the runway, and guess how many were ahead of me? 52.
How long did you sit there?
2 hours.
But
you know what? The flight attendants served drinks to first class and coach. They didn't have to do that. They went out of their way to make things better for people. I was really very impressed. In fact, I was so impressed, and I can't stress it enough. If somebody does something nice for you, take the time to write the head of the airline. I wrote Bob Crandall. If you have a really good experience in your hotel, write the general manager. All we ever do is complain, with the B word, about things that go wrong. We never say, gosh, that was fun, or gee, thank you for that extra bit.
And the funny thing about people's perception of the airlines that always tickles me is whether you were on a plane, whether it was Delta, United, TWA, ValueJet, whoever it was, you'll hear people say, well, ValueJet couldn't take off on time if they wanted to. But yet, it's not the airline that stuck you 52 back. It's the flight controllers.
That's exactly right.
It's the FAA. It's the tower.
But let me tell you a great story. In order to save money on this European odyssey I took with Ashley, we had to fly from Paris back to London and then from London to Pisa, which is definitely going backwards.
Boy,
but
it is.
If we hadn't done that, we would have spent another $1,600. So for $1,600,
but in this case, you had more time than money.
$1,600, I'm going back to London, no problem. But in the meantime, British Airways lost my one and only suitcase. I only carry one, a little rollerboard. So I get to Pisa, no clothes, no suitcase, no nada, okay? Guess what? I called Avis On Call, which is a service that operates in the 6 major European countries, including Italy, France, Britain, Germany, Spain, and Portugal. I reached my English-speaking operator in Washington. I gave them my baggage slip number. I gave them a description of my suitcase and the flight I'd been on. They called British Airways. They chased down my suitcase. They called me back in my hotel in Castellina in Chianti. We're talking deep countryside here. And British Airways delivered my suitcase 24 hours later.
You're kidding.
I wouldn't make it up. And I wrote the head of British Airways. And obviously I wrote Avis On Call and said, bravo. Didn't mean to try it this much, but I did. It's superb. And imagine, Castellina in Chianti was a 2.5-hour drive from Pisa Airport from my one suitcase. So I was impressed, and I was impressed with the Avis On Call service. I was impressed with the little hotel I stayed in. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about finding great hotels. What are you doing?
What am I? I don't know yet.
Oh, I see.
As a matter of fact, I will tell you that some of this was arranged by Malta. And I haven't told you yet, but my second stop, I'm spending 5 days on Malta.
Okay.
Now, Malta is a wonderful country, and I'm going to go down and see all the nice things. One of the oldest ruins in the world is there, one of the oldest houses. It has a Catholic church for every day in the year, has a tremendous heritage, because being smack dab in the middle of the Mediterranean, everybody has ruled it. At
one time or another.
It's like 12 flags over Malta.
Okay.
So, but the country is it's 3 little islands about the size of 4 football fields.
I love it.
But there's a lot of sunshine, and my plan is to let them take me around. I'm going to do a couple of hour-long shows, and the rest of the time I'm going to lie out in the sun.
Right. Well, now you're talking. Now tell me, what are you going to do in London?
London, I am going to do a show from Big Ben inside the clock.
How fabulous.
I've got permission to interview the fellow who maintains the clock, and I may be interviewing a British government official, but I don't want to nix that.
Right.
And then on Malta, it's basically talking about the traditions and the heritage, and I'm wrapping that all into a 3 or 4 shows that I hope will help people decide that, hey, don't be afraid to go overseas.
Oh, well done. Let's talk about why people are scared of going overseas. You know, it's amazing to me. They live on the East Coast, they go to the West Coast. They live in Canada, they go to Mexico. I mean, people go anywhere they want in North America without even batting an eyelash. But suddenly you say Europe, and they say, what? No, I don't drive on the left. No, I don't eat my dinner at 10 o'clock at night. I don't speak Spanish, they say. Amazing, isn't it?
Every excuse in the book.
Yep. Well, there's so many things to make it easy. There are travel agents that make it very easy. There are tourist boards, and they're wonderful. The French government tourist office, they're manned by natives, and they're armed with fabulous material. You want a map, you want a brochure, you want the most expensive hotels in Paris, you want the least expensive hotels in the countryside. They'll send you everything, free of charge.
Listen, I called the British Information Service
Yep.
because we work with them in the media. They turned me on to the British Travel Agency. I said, can you send me something? Send me something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the postman practically had to have a hand truck.
I know, isn't it great? That's the BTA, and they're wonderful.
And it's gorgeous material.
Yeah, but that's the point. But you can call and speak to a live person who happens to be English, which means they probably know their island inside and out, which means they know Scotland and Wales. And we should talk about Scotland in a minute as well. But they will send you exactly what you want. There isn't a question that's a dumb question when it comes to planning your traveling trip. Just go ahead and ask it.
Now, you have mentioned Avis a couple of times, and I want to talk about some of the deals and things that are available overseas through Avis. But first of all, I was going to say to you, Mariana, find me a car because I want to drive in England. But then you said it. I have that thing in the back of my mind. Do I want to drive on the left side of the road? Should I be afraid of learning that technique?
Not at all. The question is really time, Dennis. It's your first time there. Do you want to drive out in the countryside, or do you really want to sort of stay in London and do day trips? It's your call on that. There is so much to see in London itself. You have to see Big Ben. You're going to do that. You should walk through the parks. You're going to be there at the peak of the flowering season in the parks. You're going to lose your mind. It's absolutely ravishing.
You know, I'm beginning to think, since this is my first trip, and I will have tremendous jet lag, because right now I sleep from about 9 in the morning till 5 or 6 in the afternoon.
Right.
That is the worst cycle to try to fix.
No, we have to send you to Australia, then you'll be fine.
Oh, okay.
They're upside down, too.
Except it's fall down there now.
Yeah, that's right. But their time is upside down.
Oh.
that means you'd fit, because you're upside down for the U.S. They're going to send you somewhere that you'd be upside down there.
I guess.
I think the main thing to do on your flight, and you can counteract that jet lag a lot. Number one, if you possibly can, get some sleep before you go. I know you're a busy man, probably can't do that, but try. Number two.
Let me hold with number one here for a second. I'm flying out at 7 o'clock on a Friday night. I will have worked till 8 o'clock that morning. Should I stay up?
No, just go ahead and sleep the way you want to sleep.
As
and can
normal.
you sleep on airplanes?
Oh, just perfectly.
Okay, but do me a favor.
I have a window so I can lean up against the wall.
Okay, do me a favor. Carry the biggest bottle of Evian you can find on the plane with you. Even if you're in business class, take it. And promise me you will guzzle that entire bottle, if not 2 bottles. Whenever you wake up, whenever you remember to drink, just drink the water. It will save you.
Well, I know the humidity on planes is so...
10%.
Yeah, and on an 8-9 hour flight, it's not like hopping from here to Chicago.
Oh, yeah, but it won't be 8 or 9 hours unless you go really slowly over the Atlantic. It's more like 6, isn't it? 6 and a half?
No, they told me it was 8 from here.
Oh, yeah? Well, that may be from Washington. I've never flown the Atlantic from Washington. But the point is to drink as much water as you can. In fact, I would start drinking water before you left your house in Arlington, and then I would drink water in the airport, and then I would start drinking water on the plane. I take 2 bottles of Evian, and I finish them going across the Atlantic. And I promise you that's why I don't have any jet lag. That's number one. Number two, set your watch to London time when you get on the airplane. When your wheels touch down at London Heathrow, your body's going to say, are you joking? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going anywhere. Except your body will be saying, yeah, let me do another show.
Yeah.
Most people don't have that. So if you look at your watch and your watch says, ooh, it's 8 o'clock, Harrods opens in 45 minutes, or an hour actually, I want to be there.
That's the big department store, right?
Oh, you have to go to Harrods. You have to go to Harrods food halls.
Oh, don't say it.
Oh, you're going to love it. You're going to have the best time in London. I'm an Anglophile. You know that.
Yeah.
They can't find any medication. So if you wanted to take... The other thing I have to tell you is that since this is your first time, the excitement level within your own head is going to be pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
try not to pack too much into it. Leave a lot of free time. Leave a lot of margin. You can't do that in your normal life. So this is a semi-quasi vacation. Make the most of it. Sleep a little later in the morning. Get lots of exercise. Walk through those parks. You're going to lose your mind in the parks. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, the other thing, too, I have tried not to structure this too much for the reason that I've been having so much problem with my sleep cycle this year anyway and chronic fatigue. I want to leave myself time to sleep.
That's the way to go. And also
I have got to look at this as a vacation with a little work.
Good. That's just what I want to hear.
I am not going over there to carry a tape recorder around 24 hours a day. I got the cheapest little lightest camera I could find.
Good.
And when I'm just bumming around, I'm going to take my tiny little tape recorder, not the 32-pound one.
Right.
And I would be a fool to come back tired.
Well, the silly part is that most people do, because we get to Europe and we're so excited and we think, oh, I'm in Paris, I got to see all of Paris. Allot yourself time. I mean, even when you're driving, only drive 2 hours a day. Allow 4 hours a day of sightseeing. Don't try and sightsee everything in Florence, Italy in one day. You're just going to end up in the ICU. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, that's the people who come here to Washington, D.C. They'll stop you on the street, ask for directions. They'll say, where is the Smithsonian? Mm-hmm. And you say, which building? And they say, what do you mean, which building? And I said, well, there are 14 buildings to the Smithsonian. They're all over Washington. And then they get, well, I'm only going to be here today. Mm-hmm. And you say, oh, these poor people, they should have called first.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell you, I tried my best to get a good grip on this Stendhal Syndrome. Have you heard about that?
No.
It's an art attack. It's when you've seen too much good art.
I see.
And I tried to do it in Florence, which is my very favorite city in the world. If anyone could get art attack in Florence, it was me. But I didn't do it. I had to stand outside the Uffizi for 2.5 hours to gain entry.
Now,
and I was there first thing in the morning. That's the travel tip. Go in the morning.
And that's a major gallery, pardon my ignorance.
It's one of the major galleries.
It's like the Louvre of
That's right,
Florence.
The Louvre. It's too bad. If you do that Paris trip, you could do it gently in a day. You take the second train, remember, not the first, and take the second to last train back, because those are the big rush hour ones. And you're right there in downtown Paris. You could just go and whiz around and have a look. The other travel tip is to grab a cab and get them to do a sightseeing trip for you. Tell them you've never been to Paris before. You want to see the Eiffel Tower. You want to see the Arc de Triomphe. You want to see the Champs-Élysées, Place de la Concorde, the Seine. And then bargain the fare before you get into the taxi.
Now, here are two money questions. What's the sensible way to understand the exchange rate so you understand that when you pay pounds or lira or francs, that even though it may sound good, when you move it back into American, you're being overcharged?
Right, you are. What I do is the simpleton's solution. I take a little 3x5 card. In the left-hand column, I put $5, $10, $25, $50, and $100 denominations. In the right-hand column, for the trip you're taking, I would put UK pounds sterling. What's the currency in Malta? Drachmas?
It's lira.
Oh, it's lira.
See, it's only 43 miles off Sicily.
Yeah, right. But I keep forgetting it's a separate, distinct colony.
It's a country.
It's a country, a republic, it's a whatever, it's got a cross.
But they call it lira, I think, because the Italians owned them last or something.
I love it. It's the way the checks work sometimes with Deutschmarks. Anyway, so in your case, I would put the pound equivalent of $5, $10, $25, $50, and $100. Mm-hmm. And then I would also put the lira equivalent of $5, $10, $50, whatever. Okay, so as you're walking down the street, let's say you're near Harrods. Let's say you're in Harrods and you see a gorgeous cashmere sweater. You've never had one. You've always wanted one. You see it on the counter and you don't know how much it is. So you just look at your card and instantly you'll find out whether that sweater is $50. Well, if you found a cashmere sweater in Harrods for $50, you better buy it and bring it back to me because that's a great buy. If it's $500, I have to walk on. And if it's $5,000, I'll probably stop and ask why it's so expensive. So it just gives you an instant benchmark. Now, if you want to be technical about it, you want to be detailed, you want to be like an accountant, then you can take a solar-powered calculator. But that sort of takes the fun out of it for me.
Yeah.
And if you're not moving treasury bonds around, you're only doing your money.
I'm not doing that. As a matter of fact, now here are a couple more basic money questions. I thought about getting American traveler's checks because AAA doesn't charge.
Right.
But then I thought, well, you lose every time you move from one currency to another. And someone said, well, you've got a Diners Club card, which is the only credit card I've got, which is fairly well accepted in Europe. I should either withdraw on my ATM, and I guess I'm ignorant about what a global village we live in, but I was shown a list of people in Europe, accepting my little ATM card.
Yeah, be careful. Be careful.
Okay, what's
the
wrong with that
problem is
scenario?
we have to have a 4-letter PIN, and I have a 4-letter PIN on. I have a Citibank Visa card, and I can't get the thing to work in London. I can't get the thing to work in Paris. I always end up going to change my American Express. I do take American Express traveler's checks, and you know the tip is go to Amex. They have offices everywhere, and cash them there. They don't charge you anything. Then when you leave London, the first thing you do when you get to Malta is change all your extra pounds sterling and forget the coins. Nobody wants your coins, so give them to a charity.
Yeah, you find that out coming back from Canada. They won't buy the coins
No,
back.
you have a very heavy pocket. It
Right.
feels like 3 bricks are in your pocket. It's just all those coins. Anyway, but when you get to Malta, then you take your pound sterling to the bank and change it into Maltese lira. Then you're only down to one currency. The idea is to never carry more than one currency.
Yeah, I don't know why. This trip seems so scary in a way, but I am so excited about it.
Oh, you must be thrilled. But you've got everything under control. You understand the money. You understand, what your time frame is. The most important thing is to have enough spare time so that if you're sitting on the Champs-Élysées and having a little glass of wine or whatever, and somebody strikes up a conversation with you and you're having a good time talking to them, you don't say, look, I'm sorry, I have to go see the Eiffel Tower now, or gosh, I've got a date with the Arc de Triomphe. Just leave some margin. That's the one thing we forget. Those of us who are working hard and traveling a lot, we forget we need margin. Leave a lot of extra time because you're going to have an absolute ball.
Yeah, and a lot of us, whether we're in broadcasting or advertising or working at a bank or even at a McDonald's, we live and die by the clock.
That's right. So the one thing you don't want to do is that. You want to have enough extra time. The other thing I want to tell you about that if you're worried about the jet lag, people poo-poo it and say it's ridiculous and there's no scientific value to it. It's only word of mouth. This is all true, but I got to tell you, melatonin works just fine for me.
All right, now let me ask you this. I went to the Natural Products Convention in Anaheim, California, did a show from there a couple, 3 weeks ago, interviewed the chief herbalist for the Natrol Company,
right,
which is the largest distributor of melatonin. I forgot to ask him, though, how much you take and how often. I've got this huge jug of it.
Oh, no, be careful. You'll be young forever. No, I think it's 5 milligrams. The key is that it helps your body go to sleep when your body's saying, look, I'm not going to do that. And it develops chemically hormones that would otherwise put you to sleep. So you take it at night as you're ready to go to sleep, and you sort of put it under your tongue and hope for the best.
Oh, I've just been swallowing it. Don't?
No, I think you meant to have it dissolve slowly.
Oh. What would you say would be the 3 or 4 main things to tell a person here in the States, and most of my listeners are in small towns, who have always shunned the idea that it's affordable and safe and doable to go overseas? And what steps do they need to take?
I think the very first thing they should do is either call their travel agent or an airline and see what kind of airfares they can get from the nearest major city to them. If they're on the West Coast, they may find a better price off the East Coast, which means they have to do the transcon to pick it up. Obviously, you're going to find a much better airfare if you fly off-season than if you fly in high season. And Europe really is May 15 through maybe October 15. So you want to fly outside those for a good bargain. Secondly, I think you want to go to the nearest bookstore or you want to call the Bethesda Travel Bookstore on their 1-800 number and tell the people in the store where you're planning to go and what your dream is. Do you want to go and stay on a farm in Devon in England? Do you want to go horseback riding in the southern Pyrenees in France? Do you just want to drive around? What do you want to do? Pick a passion, something that you like to do, and get some advice and get some books and start reading. Then start asking all your friends. The best advice in the world comes from people who've actually been there, done that. We love this. So once you've got your package together and an idea in your head, call the government tourist office. They're loaded with people who can help you out. And say it to them. You don't have a big budget. You really want to stay in the country. You like B&Bs, or you have a lot of money. You want to stay only in the top city hotels. Explain to them exactly what you're looking for, and they will send you brochures and information on that. Compile it all. Put it together.
I see people who drive halfway across the U.S. and they buy one map. And for one thing, you only feel like you feel as if you're not going anywhere because you can travel an hour and only go an inch.
Right.
And the other thing is, if you want to get off the beaten track, or you want to look for cheaper gasoline, or take part of the old highway, or you get sick and you need to know where there's a little town or something,
right,
it tells you absolutely nothing.
That's right. And of course, the byways are the fun part.
Yeah.
They're the fun part here. Well, guess what? They're the fun part in Europe, too.
I would think so.
So you use the major highways to make time when you have to, and then whenever you have to eat or whenever you want to sleep or anything you want to do other than drive fast, then you get off the major roads.
Couple of other quick questions.
Yeah.
What happens in the scenario when in Europe your car gets damaged, you get sick? In the cases where you're tempted to feel alone and stranded in a foreign country, whom do you call?
Good question. Avis has a new service out called Avis On Call, and it's also Avis Message Center, which is available via a select toll-free number in the individual country. So if you had a problem that arose in France, let's say you stepped on your eyeglasses and you didn't have an extra pair with you, then you could actually call Avis On Call on a toll-free number out of France, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You will reach an English-speaking operator because they're in Washington, D.C. They would call your optician in Washington, get Dennis Daly's prescription for it, read it back to you over the telephone, then you'd have to take it to the Paris optician and you could get your glasses remade. This is a wonderful service. The message center runs on the same telephone line, and that means if you're going to be in England, you could actually call the 1-800 number from England, the toll-free number. You'll be speaking to Washington. You could say, well, my mother's going to be calling, and tell her I'm taking the train to Paris today. I'll call her when I get home at whatever time you're going to be calling her. That way you can keep in touch with family and friends, and this is all free. Pretty darn nice, isn't it?
With the car rental.
With the Avis car. All they're going to ask you for is your rental agreement number.
Good heavens.
And those are the people that chased down my suitcase and had British Airways deliver it.
And went to bat for you.
Yeah.
Should I have a $49 prescription filled? Now you got me worried about losing my eyeglass.
No. You just take another pair.
Okay.
Take another pair.
Take a second.
And you know the travel tip about what you carry with you. You carry everything you really care about on you, and you just check whatever you don't need.
Yeah.
But remember, in Europe, the planes are smaller, and therefore they're going to make you check luggage that we wouldn't necessarily make you check over here. Certainly not on a 747, but you're not going to find any 747 service, I don't think, into Malta.
No, and I think it's a 37.
Right, well, those are nice little planes.
But don't assume that there's going to be as much carry-on.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing we should talk about is don't assume you're going to get any food on airplanes anymore. I don't know if you've noticed, but they've really cut back.
Yeah, they have.
And what they do is they do some intricate formula based on noon or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
but I see people getting stuck with a bunch of peanuts.
You can fly across supper, and they'll say, well, it's not really supper now.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So here, have a cracker.
Yeah, so the travel tip is carry not only the water, but then also carry a snack of some sort to tide you over. Or buy some food before you go to the airport. Whatever you do, don't buy the airport food. That telephone number, Dennis, for Avis On Call, Avis Message Center in the U.S. is 1-800-297-4447. Again, that's 1-800-297-4447.
Well, Mariana Field-Hoppin, always fun to talk, and this time from our bureau in New York City. I'll tell you what, I'll call you when I get back and let you know how everything went.
Promise you will. I'm dying to hear about your trip. Have a glorious time.
Mariana Field-Hoppin, still going strong, and one of the most energetic people I've ever known. Nice lady, too. I'm Dennis Daly.